We are in a mental health crisis and is not getting any better. I really think this framework has a huge ability to shift the way people think and feel about themselves.
So emotional intelligence, what is it?
So most people are living down here. Only 5 to 10% of people live in the top, and you can't get to the top without first working through the bottom. Tony Robbins, we talked about this. How much hardship has he faced? How he lives his life now. He lives his life giving back, pursuing goodness every single day because he faced those challenges head on.
How do men and women differ there when it comes to emotional intelligence?
So there are 5 key heavy emotions. The first one is we have an emotional addiction. People sometimes love to look at things that make them sad. People love to focus on things that make them feel fear.
We often run from pain, but it seems to be the necessary catalyst for the opposite of the pain, if we allow it to be. What does that look like?
Great question. Okay, so most women I work with actually live in a lot of fear and a lot of scarcity. And so that's a lower vibration, right? How do you tell someone like that to move into a high vibration? Well, when you say we have to intentionally cultivate our thoughts and our emotions to what we want it to be, then all of a sudden you start moving up that scale.
How would you define what you stand for then, and maybe what you fight against?
Oh, that's a good question. I think
in 2020, Nerida Bint lost everything that once defined her business, her relationship, and her sense of stability. What followed wasn't just hardship, it was a confrontation with the truth that most people actually avoid. There is no glass ceiling, only unexamined limitations. Searching for answers, Nerida asked a confronting question that would change her life. What do men actually look for in a wife? The answer wasn't success, intelligence, or achievement for that matter. It was emotional connection. And in that moment, she realized something uncomfortable, but actually liberating. The barrier wasn't the world, it was what she hadn't yet learned to regulate, understand, and lead within herself. That realization led her into the study of emotional intelligence, not as a theory or motivation, but as a trainable, embodied skill. A skill that determines how women show up, lead, and relate, and ultimately succeed. Today, Nerida works with women who are ready to stop outsourcing their power to circumstances, systems, or stories. She teaches them how to build emotional self-mastery so they can lead with clarity, confidence, and authority without having to wait for permission. In this episode, we dismantle the myth of the glass ceiling. We explore how unseen emotional patterns quietly cap our success and reveal what becomes possible when women take full responsibility for how they show up. This is the Freedom Formula Podcast. I'm your host, Shane DaCosta. Let's dive in. So emotional intelligence, what is it?
So that's a great question. People ask me this all the time, and emotional intelligence is essentially the relationship you have with your emotional self. So it's noticing and being able to reflect on all of the different emotions you might feel day to day. So I love to say that there are light emotions and heavy emotions. I never say negative or positive, good or bad, because generally as human beings, we love to sit in the lighter emotions, but it's part of the human experience. We will have heavier emotions, and they're usually data to help us make different decisions to redirect our lives. And it's the ability to actually be with those emotions. It's actually the ability to recognize, I'm feeling really anxious about this interview that I'm about to have with Shane today. That makes sense. If I don't allow myself to notice that and process that, I'm actually going to show up and sabotage myself from a place of avoiding that fear. Whereas when I actually allow my body to feel it and I regulate it, an emotion is just energy in motion. It just lasts 90 seconds if you allow it. But if I didn't notice that and I was rushing and I was in my head and everything I need to say needs to be perfect and you're going to feel that anxiety when I come to you. And then I'm going to throw that onto you and we're not going to have a great interview. So it's the ability to actually be with your emotions in your emotional self.
Mm. Give me some examples of then even just labeling what are the lighter emotions and what are the darker emotions.
Perfect. Okay, so the lighter emotions, we've got things, there's actually an emotional guidance scale, and it's kind of separated into 3 sections. The bottom section is survival paradigm. The middle section is very general and neutral. And then the top section is what you'd call the lighter, higher emotions. So in the higher emotion, if we start down the bottom, we've got emotions such as anger, fear, sadness, shame, neglect, disgust, guilt, rejection, criticism, blame, all those like yucky, heavy emotions. If you go to the middle tier, you've got emotions such as just neutrality, acceptance, willingness, courage. They're just kind of more neutral. And then you've got the top tier, which is abundance, prosperity, love, freedom, authenticity, enlightenment, joy, fulfillment, calm, peace. And the funny thing is, most people are living down here. Only 5 to 10% of people live in the top, and you can't get to the top without first working through the bottom.
Mm. Yeah. How do you work
through the
I
bottom?
love the way you've explained that. You've articulated the levels. It's almost like
I
suppose a scale in terms of how you get
Yeah.
to. So how do you get to the top? Because it sounds like high frequency, high vibration, and that's what you hear about.
Yeah.
When people talk about abundance, and I've had the privilege of being around a lot of like decamillionaires and millionaires.
Yes.
They always talk about vibration.
Yes. Yeah. Look, at the end of the day, law of vibration, law of assumption, law of attraction are all the same thing. And what I talk about is very similar, but I'll tell you this, and I find this work so fascinating, like self-development, attachment styles, all of the different things. At the end of the day, they're all kind of very similar in teaching you how to move out of the heavy into the light. But when I used to hear law of vibration, I didn't really understand what that meant, me personally, okay? But when I started understanding this guidance scale, I started understanding, okay, well, this makes sense. Yes, I'm living in a lot of fear. I'm living in a lot of shame. I live in a lot of rejection and loneliness. But I want to be in connection, love, calm, peace, community. So how do I actually do that? And what if we don't actually acknowledge those emotions within us and work through them, if we don't face them, then they actually stay stagnant and we actually live from those places. Now, when I hear of the term law of vibration, to me that says the way you think and the way you feel. So let me ask you, when you wake up and you're a successful entrepreneur every day and you wake up and you think, I'm excited to go to work. I'm excited to have these meetings. I'm looking forward to my day. What have I got going on? I'm going to get organized. I would say those thoughts and those emotions are in that higher frequency. But if you're showing up and you're thinking, oh God, I can't believe I have to do this today. I'm dreading this meeting, then you're actually in a lower vibration. And so what I help people do, because nothing changes first without awareness, okay? Most women I work with actually live in a lot of fear and a lot of scarcity. They have so much self-doubt, self-criticism, and self-blame. And so that's a lower vibration, right? So, but how do you tell someone like that to move into a high vibration? Well, when you say we have to intentionally every day cultivate our thoughts and our emotions to what we want it to be, then all of a sudden you start moving up that scale. But the first thing you have to do is recognize, I actually live in a lot of fear, or I live in a lot of shame. Shame is an emotion a lot of people don't actually understand. So there are 5 key heavy emotions. The first one is anger. That's a result of boundaries being crossed, needs not being met. Then we have fear, a lack of security, safety, and stability. Then we have sadness, a lack of love, connection, and understanding. We have guilt, a feeling of being overly responsible for someone else's emotions. And then we have shame, a feeling that I am not good enough, I'm bad or broken. So you've got all these perfectionists, high achievers, and don't get me wrong, I love pursuing excellence. I love striving for the top. But when I strive for something and I miss, I'm kind to myself. Like today, I was 20 minutes late for this appointment. Now, 5 years ago, old me would have gone into a spiral of, of course you're late. You're always late. You're so unreliable. Shane's never going to have you back. He's going to think less of you now. But today, I was able to go, that feels really bad to let someone down like that. Okay, you made a mistake. You're not a bad person. Take a few deep breaths. Focus. Let's get there as soon as we can.
I love that. It's powerful. Circling back then, as an emotional intelligence coach, I feel this is important to start with as kind of the foundation.
Yep.
Can you describe what you do?
Yeah. So I launched my business about 4 years ago. And at first I really wanted to work with a lot of trauma clients and couples and people who were like really working through deep trauma. I spent the next 2 years doing a lot of that work, and then I came to really find how powerful this emotional intelligence was, that it was the missing piece that so many people were going to therapy, counseling, psychology, not getting anywhere. People were getting given a label such as you've got depression, you've got anxiety, you've got ADHD. But when you go back to the childhood, the first 0 to 7 years, it makes sense. I was diagnosed with depression at 22. And so I always thought there was something broken with me. But now I know what I know. I look at my child and I think it makes so much sense that I grew up with feeling so much shame and so much sadness because I didn't get my needs met. There were so many things. I had my physical needs met, the roof over my head, food on the table, that was always met. But my relationship with my father deeply left me feeling so inadequate and actually bad. Whereas some people, they have more instability, like a lot of violence in the home. So they live in states of fear. So of course they're going to have manifested fear later on. Your first 7 years is like a computer program. Everything that you are seeing, hearing, feeling, and experiencing is building what's called your emotional home. And that for me was so freeing to understand that there was nothing actually wrong with me. I just needed to rewire the way I thought about myself and become kinder to myself. And so I then started understanding that the world needed more emotional intelligence coaches. So now what I do is I actually teach women how to become an EI coach and go out and teach people this work, because we are in a mental health crisis and is not getting any better. And I really think we've got this framework has a huge ability to shift the way people think and feel about themselves.
Mm-hmm. Those dark emotions, as you describe them, or heavy.
Yep,
you describe them as heavy.
Yep.
Heavy. You know, anger, fear, sadness, guilt, shame. It sounds like so much of what society also naturally projects onto us. I mean,
100%.
If you take a moment just to think about what we're exposed to on social media, right, consistently every day.
100%.
It's almost like it's actually the narrative that the average media wants to push on you, whether it be fear, creates a sense of anger, which then can produce levels of sadness because of what you're seeing, what you're experiencing, and then the shame also being projected on what we see or what we feel because we see others succeeding and maybe we're not experiencing that in life.
Yeah.
So we live there.
Yes.
It's almost like we're conditioned to live on that level.
Well, okay. This is the interesting part. Whatever your emotional set point is what you will notice in the world, okay? So every single day the world is throwing thousands of bits of information at you. And do you know what's really interesting? This morning, what you noticed on social media would be very different to what I noticed, okay? So my emotional home is shame, loneliness, sadness, and confusion. You know, I've always wanted to get married and have kids. So the stuff I would notice is all these people getting married, getting engaged, having babies, and that constant sense of that's never going to happen for me. I'm not worthy. I'm not lovable. Whereas yours would have been completely different. Yours would have been around success and other men and achieving See, what's really interesting is I am a successful woman. And I think, funnily, my pain has more been in my relationship, not so much success. It's just come naturally and easy to me because I had no preconceived. The best thing I say to parents is don't try and turn your child into anything. Don't try and make them successful, because the more you try to teach them how to be in the world, the more pain you will leave them with. You should just love them and you should be there. If a secure child who feels good about themselves will actually naturally become successful. And so I find that so interesting. Look at what's happening with social media and politics. Some people are drawn to certain narratives. Why? Because they feel they have unresolved shame that they don't want to sit with, so they want to project it onto someone else and judge. Because I'll tell you what we're seeing right now is a huge amount of people wanting to be superior, looking down on others. You are this, you are that, you're such a bad person, right? That comes from a result of feeling inferior, okay? When people feel inferior, if they don't want to face it, it feels so overwhelming. I'm going to go to superior and look down on you to relieve that feeling. It's actually unresolved shame. Whereas if you sit with that inferiority and process it, wow, what is it about me that constantly compares myself to other people? I'm going to work on that. I'm going to take that on. Okay, so what we're seeing is you will, whatever emotional set point you're at, and I notice this even in myself, there are some months I'm drawn to like really heavy things and other months I'm not.
Same.
You know, there was 3 months ago that all I would want to look at is funny reels, funny. And I never used to be that way. But I realize now looking back, I was in a really good place in my life. I'd moved in with my new partner. We'd started trying for a baby. I was just in the best, my business was thriving. I was in the best place possible. So all of the judgment and the shame and the fear and the gloom and doom just would go past me. I wouldn't even notice it. So it's interesting, right? We are drawn to notice whatever is going to evoke the emotions we have not faced within ourselves.
Kind of like a confirmation bias.
100%.
It's the
100%.
reticular activating system where
Yes.
when all of a sudden when you want
Yes.
a red Porsche,
Yes.
you've never wanted one before,
Exactly.
but you want a red Porsche now for
Yes.
some reason. You're driving
Yes.
down, going
Yes.
somewhere.
Your
and all you
RAS.
see are red Porsches.
100%.
Right? So when we
RAS.
have that negative worldview and whatever reason we're you're saying when we're in a state where we may be more inclined to notice things that are actually an expression of how we're feeling.
Yeah.
And then attached to those things.
100%. And your job is to look at the end, like what content and material am I ingesting every day and how is it making me feel? You know, because we have an emotional addiction, you know. People sometimes love to look at things that make them sad. People love to focus on things that make them feel fear. People love to make themselves focus on things that make them feel shame. Or shame is a funny one. It's a sneaky one, right? Shame and blame are two sides of the same coin. So for me in the work that I do, I work with two types of women, okay? I work with a woman who's like, I'm not good enough. And then I also work with a woman that's like, they're not good enough. They're both sides of the same coin. One is internalizing the shame. One is externalizing the shame into blame. But they're both coming from a painful place because anyone who feels worthy won't make a comment on anyone else being anything or themselves. They're actually kind and compassionate and understanding and considerate towards themselves and to other people. The reason why I'm so magnetic in the work that I do is because I never speak about myself in an unkind way and I don't speak about others the same. You wouldn't trust me if I was really lovely to you and so like complimentary and overly encouraging and supportive, but then when it comes to my stuff, I was judging myself and criticizing myself, you would feel something's off. Whereas if I did the same opposite, it would be off. Most people, all they need to do is align. Make sure the way you treat others is the same way you treat yourself, and you will actually start to feel more integrated and aligned in the world.
Powerful. It sounds like it's got a lot to do with the type of self-talk, the narrative. Would that be fair to say?
100%. Take your thoughts captive. Like the way you think, you have about 20,000 thoughts per day. And most of us are completely unaware of it. What I like to say is a great exercise to see where you're at. Like the first step is to break it down into two, love or fear, okay? Just take one day or one morning and grab out a journal and on one side write love at the top, on the other side write fear. And I just want you to notice every thought that floats by, every thought, and go to write it down. And when you want to write it down, ask yourself, does this belong in the love or in the fear? And what you'll start to notice is, wow, I'm actually coming from such a place of fear. How do I now shift this to a place of love and trust?
It's interesting. I think if we try to ask why we're pre-wired that way, I mean, it has to
I'll tell you right now.
From my thoughts, just from the way I sort of look at it, it has a lot to do with how we evolved evolutionary to also protect ourselves largely.
Your internal voice is your parents' internal voice. So and it's not just the way they speak to you, it's the way they speak to themselves. Okay. So that's really important. Your parents, like the way you hear them talk to themselves and talk about other people and talk to you, you absorb and that becomes your internal voice. So if you were raised by, like a lot of women I work with, were raised by what they call a really good mother, like a good family. I come from a good family. And their mother might have been so loving to them, but yet to herself, she was judgmental, critical, shaming, a lot of self-doubt, a lot of like insecurity. So the daughter will absorb that, not what her mum tells her. Like, you know what I mean? She'll be like, yeah, I know my mum loves me, but I also feel this sense of doom and this sense of self-doubt all the time. Well, guess what? I want you to think about this. If I was with my partner and we were obese, like ridiculously obese, and we decided to have a baby, do you think I would raise a child that was healthy, played sport, ate healthy food?
Very unlikely.
No, exactly. You can't give your child emotionally, physically, logistically, financially, anything that you haven't got for yourself. So I love using that analogy because it's so simple, people understand it. But the reason why you don't have self-worth or self-confidence is because likely your parents didn't. They didn't know how to model it for you. Doesn't mean they were bad parents, doesn't mean they didn't love you, but it's just they just did not have those tools.
They can't give what they don't have.
That's right. Exactly.
And then it starts to show up obviously later on in life.
Yeah. Well, I really believe that you're drawn to the things that will bring these wounds up for you. So you'll be drawn to like an entrepreneurial career, or you'll be drawn to launching a business or doing something that will bring this self-worth up. And it's ugly to face, like it's painful to face, but we're on this planet to pursue self-actualization. Like we actually want to go to heaven, looking back, being able to, knowing that we pursued our highest self. You know, there's a great quote that I love. The idea of hell is getting to the end of your life and meeting the person you could have become. No one wants that, right? We want to get to the end of our lives and look back and feel good about ourselves. Like have you ever, you built a business. If you were to build that business and look back on that 5-10 years of everything that you went through, the emotions, the decisions, the work, but if you went out and bought that same business for the same amount of money, which one would feel better?
Yeah, the one you built.
That's right. Because why? It's self-actualization. We actually want to know we are capable.
And to be capable, you have to face adversity.
We're built for it. We are built for hardship, but we avoid it, right? We're built for hard times. We're built for turmoil. We're built for, tragedy. It's going to happen to all of us. It's unavoidable. No one gets a free ride on this planet. And I would say that if you pursue that, you will live a very unfulfilled life. Like Tony Robbins, we talked about this.
Yeah.
How much hardship has he faced? But look how he lives his life now. He lives his life giving back, pursuing goodness, like every single day. Yeah, because he faced those challenges head on.
It sounds like from what you shared just about the way our brains are sort of wired and then what that then produces in terms of emotions, that what you focus on amplifies.
Yeah, what you run from, you run into.
Wow.
I see it all the time. Okay, you got to think about this. Let me give it to you in a really simple way. Okay, I just had a client recently who was raised by parents and his mother cheated on his dad, okay? And it caused him a lot of pain. So he said to himself, I never want to have that happen to me, ever. So he went out and became very successful. He was like, I want to have so much money that any woman will be with me and never leave me. Ironically, he got married, had a couple of kids, found out his wife had an affair, and now they're going through a very nasty divorce. Now, why is that? Because he was running from pain rather than asking himself, what may have happened in order for them to break down? What is the kind of person I want to become? And what is it that I actually want to create? Because he was running from, I don't want that pain ever again, he ran into it rather than going, that was a broken relationship. They had no communication. They didn't know how to repair conflict. They didn't know how to communicate. How do I actually learn to communicate? Learn how to pick someone that's aligned with my values. What do I actually need to become in order to build a healthy relationship? So many people, when I ask them, what do you want in life? The first thing they do is tell me what they don't want. So it's like if you and I, if I knew deep, if we were about to get in a car and go on a road trip together and I knew I wanted to get to Brisbane and you said to me, Nerida, where should we go? I just don't want to go to Sydney. I just don't want to go to Sydney. How are you going to know how to get to Brisbane?
Sounds
right?
so obvious.
Exactly. So many people don't actually know what they want. You want more money? How much more? Is it $1 more? Is it 100? Is it 100,000? Is it 1 million?
I heard an interesting parable actually at an event that we were both at.
Yeah, yeah.
And the speaker from stage, inspiring woman, she gave a parable of the man walking in the street saying he wanted more money.
Yeah.
And he asked, and to kind of give it the finality that it kind of needs. He was asking for more money. So this rich man who he was asking the money from gave him $1 and said, "You only give me $1." He said, "Well, you just asked me for more money."
Exactly.
So you're kind of saying basically it's the clarity in where we want to go that then sets the course.
You need clarity to put the GPS in so you know how to get there. If you wanted to, some people say, I want to lose weight. How much? 1 kilo? 10 kilos? Well, what's required to lose 10 kilos? Who do you need to be and why is it that you want to create that?
Who we become seems to be the biggest reward and it's something that isn't spoken about as much as it should be. Particularly if we're sort of hanging out in entrepreneurial spaces, we often will celebrate the money. And those other aspects of what money brings. But when you peel that all away, it's really who we become. Because I was even, just as I was talking about, I was driving up here and I'm listening to the podcast with Tony Robbins and Alex Hormozi. And there was something that they said, which was actually Tony talking about a mentor that he had at a time when Tony was facing a divorce. And despite his training and his emotional intelligence and who he is, he had this moment where he was going through a spiral and he went to his mentor saying, "What do I do?" type scenario. And the mentor kind of pulled him up and helped him pause for a moment. You must have heard this in the podcast. And he basically said, you can lose all that, but what you will never lose is the person you become, the capability, the belief, the impact you can create, the type of energy you can bring to the world, the problems you can solve, that stuff.
It's like, I don't know if you've read it, The Man's Search for Meaning, but he talks about—
It's on a list.
Yeah, it's a great book. And he just talks about he was in prison, right? And the one thing no one could take from him was his belief, his spirit, who he believed he was. And that has carried me through some really dark times because sometimes, we all face different pain, right? Some of us face bankruptcy. Some of us face, losing a loved one. It's
Death,
different.
Divorce, money, troubles tend to be the
top. There's so many different hardships we will all face. But at the end of that, and this is why I'm a big believer in emotional health is very different to spiritual health. I'm a Christian. I believe in God. I believe in Jesus. And I've seen a lot of very strong Christians have zero emotional intelligence because, and I've seen a lot of people with emotional intelligence have zero spiritual faith. For me, I believe emotional intelligence is your emotional health and well-being is like who you are on the earthly plane. Shane and Nerida, you wake up, you're in your meat suit. It's like the day-to-day when you're with your wife and I'm with my partner and your kids and whatever, it's like that, right? But then your spiritual faith and hope and health is when things are out of your control, where do you go? Who do you pray to? Who do you hold faith in? Who carries you in those dark nights? And I really believe we need both. So it's a funny one, but I love the whole premise of this life, this lifetime and what it's about. And if I died tomorrow, I would actually, I would say I'm 43 and I would say 37 years of my life, I lived in a lot of pain and not really facing myself. I was successful. I had a beautiful partner at the time. I bought I actually on paper looked like a decent person, but behind closed doors, I was a shell of a human being. Whereas this last 6-7 years, I actually genuinely love the person I am. And if God said to me, I'm going to give you 36 or 7 years of pain to have the last 6 years of actual deep peace and trust and love, I would say every day of the week, yes. So, I think that finding that, building that relationship with yourself is the number one thing we should pursue.
Quick pause. If you're listening right now and you weren't built for an average income or a life stuck behind a desk, this is for you. We are hosting a 90-minute FDR masterclass live with me, where I break down exactly how to become a highly skilled finance development representative in the remote sales space. You'll see how top reps work US accounts close from home and position themselves to earn 6 figures remotely. Now, at the end of the masterclass, we'll invite attendees to apply to work with us directly. From there, we'll be selecting 30 people to move forward. where we'll provide elite training, hands-on support, and physical help to place you in roles on US accounts with a clear pathway to earn six figures while working from home. Now, this is not for everyone. It's for people who want freedom and are willing to do what it takes to actually earn it. Now, if that's you, I want you to comment in the comments freedom to register for the next masterclass, or head to the link in the bio right now. Okay, let's head back to the show. Something super powerful in that. We often run from pain.
We
avoid it.
Yeah.
But it seems to be the necessary catalyst for the opposite of the pain.
Yeah.
If we allow it to be.
Yeah. Yeah. If you can face yourself and if you can be honest, radically honest.
What does that look like?
Okay. So great question. Okay. So I remember my big wake up call came in 2020. So, 6 months prior, I'd been to Tony Robbins' UPW, and I remember him talking about the emotional home, and it blew my mind. And I was like, wow, this is fascinating. And I knew I had some demons I need to look at, but I remember thinking to myself, don't open Pandora's box. Nah, I don't want to go there. And anyway, then all of a sudden, have you ever heard of the quote, at first there's a knock, then there's a bang, then someone kicks the door down. When I went to Tony Robbins, that was the knock. 3 months later, it was the bang, and then 3 months later, it was the kick the door down. I owned a couple of gyms at the time. COVID happened, closed everything down. My accountant said to me, I think you're going to go bankrupt. My partner broke up with me the same month, coincidentally.
Oh, wow.
I was living in a 1-bedroom apartment, Airbnb, by myself. Couldn't see anyone. And I was just like, what's happening in my life? Now, my partner at the time said to me, Nerida, I feel like I'm not good enough for you. And do you know when he said that, what I thought that meant? I actually thought he thought that I was too good for him, and I didn't understand it, right? We went to therapy, we went to all the things. And when I was in therapy, do you know what I genuinely wanted the therapist to say? I remember going and thinking, you just need to tell him he's in the wrong. You need to tell him he needs to work less. He needs to be more of this, be more of that. I could not face my part. And it was so interesting. 6 months later, I was devastated by that breakup. It broke my heart. I thought he was the man I was going to marry. 6 months later, I was with a really good friend, a couple. And he'd been a bit of a ladies' man before he committed to my friend. And I remember asking him, they'd been married 10 years. And I said, what is it about her that made you decide she was the one? And he said, Nez, I don't know what it was, but she was the only person that never made me feel like I wasn't good enough for her. And I just remember having this moment of like, oh my God. And it all came flooding in. All of the moments I used to criticize him, I used to blame him, I used to shame him. I used to tell him, all of those moments where I would project my own yuckiness onto him that constantly made him feel like he wasn't enough. And in that moment, everything shifted. I started to see myself more clearly. Another thing, I remember I've done this deep work for like 7 years now. I'm talking deep. We went to this seminar. It was 2 weekends. And here I am thinking, I know my shit. I'm like, I know my shadow. And we go to this thing, and day one, you had to come home and you had to message 5 people a list of questions about you. And you had to ask them to be really honest. So I was excited. I went home and I messaged them all. And 2 of them were ex-boyfriends. And do you know what consistently came back? Sometimes I feel like I'm not good enough for you. Sometimes I feel like you judge me. Sometimes you give me advice when I haven't asked for it. So what I say is don't let your strengths negate your weaknesses, right? My strength in a coach is when you are sitting here asking me for my opinion and for me to speak, it's a gift. But for my friends and family, it's a curse. So I started to realize I thought I was helping people and I thought I was making them better, but I was actually making them feel so inadequate around me. And that was really hard for me to face. So if you want to know who you really are, ask the people around you.
Interesting.
How do they experience you? Honestly.
How would you ask them?
I would say, hey, where are the times that I leave? What is it that I sometimes leave you feeling that might not feel good? And what is it that I'm doing?
Could we pre-frame that in possibly it being a text message so it's safer?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Because it's hard for people to be honest too. I could tell the very first message I got back, she wasn't really honest. She was like, And I said, no, I need to know this. If you can't give me an answer, I need to ask someone else. And she was like, oh, well, I guess this time when I got divorced and you gave me advice about my relationship, I actually really just wanted you to listen. And here I am, an emotional intelligence coach, and I can't even show up for my best friend going through a divorce. And this is the piece that not enough people own. I don't trust any mentor, leader, guide, spiritual coach who gets up there and just points the finger. The ones that resonate for me is when they get up and they say, this was the mistake I made. This is what I could see I was doing. This was the shadow that I was living in and still do sometimes. I still catch myself doing it with my partner.
The authenticity.
Yeah. And the only reason I can do that is because I sat with that shame. Like that night, I was on a high that day at that event and I was in tears that night getting those messages back. And I had to go back the next day and show everyone these messages. And here I am on social media. Everyone's following me. Everyone's putting me up on a pedestal. And I could have done one of two things. I could have shrunk or lied or pretended, or I could lean in and be like, my best friend sent me this. My ex-boyfriend sent me that.
When you say sitting with it, is it where you need to arrive at a place of acceptance? And at what point does that acceptance then... Because I would feel like it's almost a moment where you need to A, accept, but B, then not allow it to define you going forward. Is that?
Okay. So there are two things. There are feelings, emotions, and then there are sensations. Okay. So when I was getting those messages back, the emotion that was coming up for me was shame and sadness and confusion, my emotional home again. So that was making my body feel sick inside. Like my throat was getting tight. My chest was pounding. I was feeling a lot of heat and a lot of fire and a lot of shame. Now, I had two options. I could either get up and go and call someone and be like, can you believe what this person just said to me? Or I could go out for dinner and have a glass of wine and just drink and forget about it. Or I could get my phone out and just scroll on social media. I can avoid it. Or I can sit and be like, wow, that feels really hard to read. That feels, I'm feeling shame right now. That makes sense. Breathe. 90 seconds, right? I'm going to sit here and I'm going to notice what's happening in my body and in my heart. Oh, and until it's subsided a little bit. Then I'm going to ask myself, because emotion is just energy in motion, right? I'm going to ask myself what might feel good to move this through my body with intention, without avoiding. So what I did was I was staying in a beautiful high rise on the Gold Coast. I walked outside. I put my hand on my heart and I let the breeze just take my hair. And I just closed my eyes, and because my big thing is I'm a bad person, right? My dad used to look at me and tell me I was a bad person over and over and over again. So at some point you have to recorrect the language you heard from your parents. So if you were raised by parents that traumatized you. So I remember standing there and saying, all right, this is good that they felt honest enough to tell you this. It makes you feel bad. That makes sense. You are a human being and you make mistakes, and that's okay. You are going to go and you are going to rebuild these relationships with these people and listen to them and apologize and be there. And I just practiced that night. I had tears a number of times. I just let the tears fall, right? And I just cleared my evening so I could be with what was coming up, right? Can you imagine if you had a friend and he was like, Shane, I've just found out my wife's cheating on me. I need to come and see you. You would clear your day and you'd be like, let's go. Where do you want to meet? Let's go to the beach. Let's have a swim. Let's sit and chat. But how often do you do that for yourself? How often do we actually give ourselves that same presence and understanding and love?
Crazy.
And the relationship we have with self is always the last to look at because it's so terrifying, because it's got all of that pain from childhood, all those moments we were left alone, we were misunderstood, we were laughed at, we were told not to be upset about, whatever it is, right? It's all these moments over and over and over that we don't want to look at. But I'll tell you this, I've done everything. I've done all the therapy, all of it. The sooner you get to that, the better.
Sounds like a lot of identity shifting.
Yeah. Well, we're all actually born whole and worthy. We're flawed, but we're all worthy. But it's the relationship the minute that, okay, so really what's happening is the minute you're born, do you have kids?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So the minute that they're born, do you remember them constantly looking at you, wanting to touch you, kiss you? Daddy, daddy, come watch me do this. Watch me do that. Come play me with you. Da, 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 da. So children are constantly seeking three things. They're bidding for your connection over and over and over again. They're asking themselves, am I safe? Am I loved? Am I understood? Now, if you respond to those bids for connection in a positive way 80% of the time or more, they will have a strong sense of self. Yes, I'm worthy of love. Yes, I'm understood. And yes, I am safe. But what happens is most of us weren't raised in those kind of homes. We were raised by absent parents. We were raised by angry parents. We were raised by, anxious parents. And so when we were going looking for their connection or love or understanding, if they don't respond to that bid in a positive way, we start to fracture. Because what happens is, as a child, when I was little, it was too overwhelming for me to look at my father and actually acknowledge him for the man he was. So what do is I make it mean something about me. Children go into self-blame, self-doubt, and self-criticism in order to self-soothe. We don't have the capacity to look at our parents for the real people that they are. Like, there's no way I could look at my dad and be like, okay, he's traumatized, he's coping with alcohol and cigarettes, he's got a lot of pain that he's just projecting onto me. No, I didn't have the maturity to do that.
Not at that time.
Exactly. So what I do is like, oh, I'm bad. There must be something wrong with me. So we fracture in order to soothe, and then we stay in those patterns for decades until we wake up.
There was an analogy I heard, which kind of now just is coming back as I'm listening to you talk about identity, that we often agree to our identity. We sort of take on an identity early in our life, and then we hold that for the rest of our life.
100%.
And the analogy was like, does it make sense to forever be defined with that identity?
Yeah.
Based on the person that you were 20 years ago. But yet people do that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so they will label themselves like, well, I am not smart, or I am not good with business, or I'm not good in leadership, or whatever other aspect there is in that. But then hold that forever.
And that's really essentially because something happened in your childhood to prove that. So your RAS went ding, 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 ding. Oh, dad doesn't believe in me. Oh, mum doesn't think that's safe. Oh, dad doesn't love me. Like, so what's interesting is, did you feel loved by your parents?
Well, it's always going to be that type of response, isn't it? I mean, it's going to be, because that question is difficult to answer, because then you're going to look for reasons maybe why you were not.
Yeah.
So I would say somewhat.
Yeah. But okay, let me ask you
and based on what filter too, I would then sort of go, okay,
yes.
well, what am I comparing it to?
Yes.
But I would say, yeah, somewhat.
So I would argue you probably maybe felt more like which one felt harder for you to sit with? My parents love me. My parents are proud of me.
Which one feels harder?
Yeah. Like, which one feels like more
Proud.
untrue? Yeah, exactly. Which is why you're married, but your wound is in business, like is in who you are as a successful man. Whereas I'm the complete opposite. My parents didn't give a shit what I did. Like, I watched school for a month and they didn't even know. So there was no pressure. Whereas I had the wound of I'm not lovable. Like, I was constantly looking for that, but yet I could go out into the world and just make success because there was no kind of like imprint about that, if that makes sense. So it's because we have these different experiences. And, there's a great coach that I love. She was a mentor to me. Her name is Zalura Halliwell. And she said, most people have one of three wounds. They feel unloved, unworthy, or unknown. And I find that very interesting. Mine was unloved. We got a lot of people that are unworthy. And then we got a lot of people who are unknown, which is, I know my parents loved me, but I can't be honest with them because I'm responsible for their emotions. Their emotional home is guilt every day of the week. Guilt, guilt, guilt. They're the people pleasers. They're the ones that kill themselves making other people happy. They can never say no, right? So that's fascinating to me. And then you've got a lot of people that have the unworthy and unknown, or unworthy and unloved.
So how do men and women differ there when it comes to emotional intelligence?
Yep.
How do we differ?
So I love this question because I personally believe in traditional values, and I believe that men are logical beings and women are emotional. Now, do I still want men to become emotionally healthy? Absolutely. I see it in my partner. It's so fascinating to me. He can sit with my emotions so much better than he can sit with his sons because he has a father wound, right? I can come home and I can be like, oh, this happened and that happened. Like even today I called him. I said, oh my God, I'm late for my podcast. He was so good. He was like, oh, okay, where are you? Are you all right? Take a breath. That makes sense. It's okay. But if his son has an emotion, he just like flips out. So it's so interesting, right? Whereas I can hold my niece and nephew and my stepson's emotions more so. Whereas my partner, because my wound is in the unlovable, when my partner's a little bit up and down, I spiral because that's my attachment, right? So I do believe men need to be emotionally healthy because they need to be able to sit with the emotions of their partner and their children. But I do say, I love this analogy that you have like God up here, God, faith, community. Then you have that overarches the father overarches the mother, and the mother overarches the children. So I really believe in that kind of system. Whereas, you know, so I believe that, and so what that means is a man shouldn't go to his wife for emotional healing. He should go to his men. He should go to Christ, or he should go to his brothers. I do believe in that. I think iron sharpens iron, and men can only, this is why I don't coach men anymore, because men can only teach other men how to be a man, right?
Interesting, yeah.
But I think you've got to be around emotionally healthy men, okay? So I believe that men need men and women need women, but we need to also be able to come together. But a man, I don't think, because what we've got, right, is when you think about this argument around toxic masculinity, we're all arguing about different things. People think that masculinity now, toxic masculinity is this like Andrew Tate, overly controlling, dominant, aggressive, explosive man, okay? But like anything, you've got the other side of the coin, which is the passive, doormat, obliging, constant, yes, people pleaser man. He's also, but he's also quieter than this guy. But they're both painful. They're both wounded. They're both coming from the father wound. Whereas when you've got the integration of the man who can hold his boundaries, express himself, be honest, but also has that loving, kindness, acceptance, compassion, that is what's healthy. And we actually look for the same in women. We've got toxic femininity just as much as we've got.
What does that look like?
Well, it's women projecting their pain onto men. You know, I work with women coming from domestic violent relationships every single day. And if you want to go out there and blame men for being, being that like being aggressive, being controlling, you are going to repeat the pattern over and over and over. You are drawn to a man who makes you feel unsafe because you came from an unsafe childhood. You have the emotional home of fear that you are consciously calling in order to heal. So because at any point in any domestic violent relationship, there is always an earlier point where they're not telling the truth or something happens, there's a red flag. Now, a healthy, secure person, confident person would see that, get up and walk away, and they would never speak to that person again. But you keep pursuing that person, wanting to change them, loving them, going into the big drama cycle, so you are just as wounded as they are. So women need to own their own pain rather than constantly projecting it onto men.
So how would you
Going to get a lot of hate for that.
Oh, dang. The truth can hurt, can't it? I mean, it's fascinating because I think of even just a couple of nights ago, Pearl and I, my wife, we were watching a movie that there's this scenario where there's this really, what you just described as toxic femininity. There's this lady in the movie as one of the characters that is quite aggressive towards her partner. Her partner's a doormat. It's actually in The Hangover. I'm not sure if you've seen the movie The Hangover. It's hilarious. But we just happened to watch this movie. We just needed some light in our day. That day was some light. So watching something quite easy to consume. And there's this character though, and she sticks out like a sore thumb as you're describing that person. I'm kind of just thinking of it because she actually, and they make light of it, and it's funny how Hollywood is kind of glorify this type of character or this situation where the man's a doormat and he's getting walked all over. She's physically abusing him. But it's in humor, not just verbally, but physically. Yeah. And if we look at
the opposite.
If I look at that, I mean, from just a dynamic. It's polarizing, right? Because we have the opposite where men are overly controlling.
Yeah.
But then the opposite of that, because society's put this pressure on us, has become too many men that are doormats.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's like anything, right? And you're right. We've got those women as well. Like the overly masculine, dominant, controlling women are also quite toxic and wounded just as much as the passive victim of violence one is. Now, what happens is, again, it's about integration. Like when we swing too hard to one side and we want to swing back, we often end up right over here.
Far over the other
whereas
side.
actually integration means finding the middle path. It's actually where we find the healthy balance of the two. And I find everything in this life a paradox. And the sweet spot's always kind of in the middle, isn't it?
It is.
You know?
I love how there's a movement, what I see a lot online, and I've witnessed this in the US, and I've now started to see it in Australia, where there's a movement with also men starting to become more aware of their emotional state, not just chasing money, not just chasing that business success, but recognizing that they actually live outside of their business and how they show up then impacts their home, their relationship, their children. I'm loving it, and I'm watching these opportunities come up for men, which I think it's just been needed. I mean, because we're not really taught from young age, really. Yeah. It makes me think of a mentor I had early on when I started my entrepreneurial journey. And this mentor said something to the effect of, your emotions are just what you experience, but it's our ability to kind of separate ourselves from the emotion to kind of make sense of them and then choose how we feel or how we respond that makes us who we are. Yeah.
I agree to that to a point. So I think that for me personally, there can be okay, so I want to make it very clear. You going into an emotional addiction to like harbor and fester on a heavy emotion is not what I'm recommending, okay? But also seeing something and logically trying to talk yourself out of it also isn't either. Again, it's in the middle ground. It's in noticing the emotions there and allowing it to be there. Okay, that makes sense that I feel a bit scared about this. That makes sense that I'm feeling resentment towards her. That makes sense that I'm feeling a little bit annoyed at this right now. Like what's going on underneath? Then it's the logical, okay, let me process this and let me work out, reflect, why might I be feeling this way? Just the other day, my nephew, my stepson, he loves to play video games. And, Gary and I have come from very different sort of views on technology. He's kind of come from let him, explore his own, how much time he spends, whereas I'm more like, let's have boundaries. And it was so interesting. I walked past him the other day and I was furious that he was still on it. And I just went to the gym and I was driving along and I just decided to turn the music off. And I thought, why are you so angry about that? Like what's going on for you where you are so angry that he's playing a video game? I still don't know the answer. I still don't know. But something's coming up. And now because if I had just driven to the gym and not acknowledged that I was feeling really angry, I would have taken that into my whole day. But because I could just acknowledge and be like, you're really angry about this. Why are you so angry? Okay, I don't really know. I'm not really sure. Something's going on for me. Maybe I need to get some support and work through whatever this wound is. So it's but we've got to be really careful. There are 4 things we do if we're not emotionally intelligent. We either dismiss, minimize, project, or deflect. So dismiss means, it's not such a big deal. Like, you shouldn't worry about that. So you imagine if, your partner had a miscarriage. Oh, darling, there'll be another baby. Don't worry. She's going to feel so alone in her pain. Then there's minimize. Well, you might have had a miscarriage, but at least you're married. Or it's that whole like, well, at least it's that comparison. You shouldn't feel that way because of this over here that you've got. Then you've got project, which is I'm just going to project out to you all my anger, my hurt, like bleh. We don't want to do that. And then there's deflect, which is a sneaky one, which is I'm going to change the topic, crack a joke, or do something because I feel uncomfortable to shift the conversation. And I will say a lot of men I meet are big deflectors and big dismissers. And what I see in relationship is a woman just wants a space to be heard, okay? And a man wants to fix and take care of his woman. They are two beautiful things, right? The masculine brings a beautiful sense of provision to a family home. Now, I always say to men, ask this question. When your wife is in pain, ask this question. Do you want me to help you solve this, or do you just want me to listen?
Big difference.
100%. Because I love that men want to fix it. I think it's amazing, because the first thing I want to do when I'm in shit is I want to call my partner, because he's just got this beautiful way of going, I've got it. But sometimes I just want to vent, and I just want to process, and I just want to know he's there. And we've managed to work that out now. But a lot of couples, a man will go straight into fix-it mode because he doesn't want to see his wife in pain. But what that does is makes her think, oh, well, I shouldn't feel this way. So you know what I mean? Most of us can't be with our partner or our children's pain because it brings up so much in us. And then what that subtly sends the message is, you shouldn't feel this way. And then what a person does is internalizes that. So it's a funny one. I definitely say don't go in and fester into an emotion, but I think you do need to build a relationship with it.
We could probably talk for hours
I
about
know.
so many aspects of this. And how important is high emotional intelligence then in the journey for a woman sort of transitioning from a 9 to 5 into the space of wealth creation, whether it's delving into sales or business building or some level of leadership in their role?
I love this question. Okay. There was a great study that they did where they took 50 men and 50 women into a job interview. And I don't know if you've heard this before, but all of the men naturally oversold themselves 20 to 30% on their resume and their ability and their competency. Guess what women did? Women undersold themselves by 30 to 40%. So women want to talk about this glass ceiling. I haven't met a single woman who is successful and is confident in her ability that ever sees a glass ceiling. You are creating it yourself with your self-doubt, your self-blame, and your self-criticism. So the first thing you need to do is call yourself out on that and own the thoughts that you are having about who you are. And now I work with a lot of remote closers, and so it's a very emotional, not only training to become one, doing your test, then getting into your jobs. Now, what I always say is focus less on what you think you need to say in the call and focus more on how you feel before and after and during. Because if you were to say one word, how do you think I feel right now? How am I coming across to you?
One word.
Yep. One emotion.
That's a difficult one.
Would you say, do you think I look anxious? Do you think I look fearful, or do you think I look overwhelmed? Calm, confident, So that's why this is going so well, because where our emotions are going back and forth constantly. And if you come into things with anxiety and fear and insecurity and inadequacy, people are going to feel that. So you need to work through that. You need to own there is a part of me that doesn't feel good enough, and I need to work on that. Now, I've created a whole online course for people to work through that. There are all these amazing tools to do that, master your mindset. But it's actually so simple. It really is. It doesn't need to be overwhelming or how do I even begin? But all you have to do is ask yourself every day, right? Let's just say that a woman, I will say this, a woman typically feels 80% anxious, inadequate, insecure, and maybe 20% of the day kind of goes, oh, okay, I can do this or that, right? We need to start growing that 20% to 30 or 40 and lowering that self-doubt to 40, 50. And what a lot of people need to do is this. I'll tell you this for sure. In one day, so many different things can happen, right? Most people overly react to the evidence that comes in to show them they're not enough. And then if something goes right, something goes well, they underreact. So let's just say I post an Instagram post before I come in, and then I have a clarity call later today. Now I've conditioned myself to overreact and obsess and engage with the positive emotions. So say, for instance, I posted a post and 3 people like it. Would most people get excited by that or feel let down by that?
Let down.
Exactly. What I've taught myself to do is 3 people resonated with that post. This is happening for me. I am the world's best emotional intelligence coach. I'm so proud of myself for writing that. I'm Delulu, right? And then if someone writes me a negative comment or someone, has a complaint or something bad happens, I watch it and I'm like, nah, not engaging with that today. Nah, not going there today. I'm not losing it.
Not today, Satan.
Yeah, not today, Satan. Exactly. So you have to learn to emotionally teach yourself when good things happen. I don't care how tiny it is.
Celebrate.
I don't care how tiny it is. Over obsess and engage and react. And when the crappy things happen, just don't even acknowledge it. Like, no big deal. No, I'm not going to react to this. I'm not going to emotionally react. That if you do that every day for 7 days, I have people write messages to me with that exercise. They're like, oh my God, I just signed 2 clients and I haven't signed 1 client in 6 months. They've done it in 7 days. And I'm telling you it works because the world is always responding to who you are being emotionally.
Can you repeat that?
The world is always responding to who you are being emotionally.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. The thing I'm curious about is how would you define what you stand for then and maybe what you fight against?
What I stand for and what I fight against. Well, that's a good question. I think I really stand for people pursuing their highest potential. And I'm not talking in terms of success. I'm talking in the way that they feel every day. My partner is one of the most successful people I know. Most days he feels worried, anxious, frustrated. I don't want to be like that.
Sounds like me.
Exactly. I more care about who you are in the quiet of your own home when you wake up in the morning and when you go to sleep at night. I want to help you feel the most, I want you to actually like yourself at the end of each day, majority of the time. Now, is it to say we should not take accountability, not take responsibility, lie to ourselves? No. Take accountability and responsibility, have compassion. So that is something I stand for, and something I stand against is when people tear others down. Look in your own backyard, okay? And I've done it. Don't get me wrong. I've been there. I've judged people. I've pointed the finger. I still find myself doing it. I'm a human. But honestly, I stand against anybody doing that. Look less at others, look more at self, and pursue that to the highest nth for every single day that you're alive on this planet.
Without a doubt, there'll be some guys listening to this that would have got so much out of it, but obviously your superpower and your area of brilliance and focus is helping women. And so where would some guys that are particularly interested in their own emotional intelligence look to? Because I've got some names, but I'm just curious who you would highlight.
Oh, great question. Are we talking Australia?
Emotional intelligence anywhere.
Yeah. Oh, there's so many amazing men doing this work. There's a great page I love called Honest Fatherhood over in the States. I don't know his name. Connor Beaton, who has a page called Man Talks. Ben Lowe, who's Australian, he works with men recovering from addiction. There are so many incredible men. Pete McLean, he's an incredible coach, men's coach who works with men, very successful men who still haven't healed their inner boy, their little boy within. Ryan Moresby, he's a great Australian coach as well, works with men in that space as well and relationships. So yeah, there are just so many. Once you follow a couple, they just start tumbling in. So there are so many men out there doing the work.
I love this conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I love you. Well, let's get you back on.
Yeah, for sure. I won't be late next time.
Thank you for that today.